So this next panel is, excuse me, as you see from your schedules, is innovative and emerging trends advancing training and development. And I think we've actually heard throughout the course of TUX a lot of emerging and innovative trends in workforce development. What we chose to do with this particular panel is just shine a light on a couple of those programs, a couple more of those programs, in particular that are leveraging maybe artificial intelligence or using data science to drive velocity and efficacy, which we've heard about over these last 2 days, whether it be in how we engage the pipeline, how we look at the practice of recruitment or engaging this next generation, for example, exposing those pathways as we look at upskilling, maybe even upskilling before they show up at the front door of an employer so that those employees can be better acclimated to the environments and the conditions and those jobs that they're going to ultimately be transitioned into. Excuse me, reduce some of that churn, right? Some of those facets that I know affect us. So how can technologies, how can we look to serve underserved populations like transitioning veterans and others available targets or, segments in our communities for bringing into our pipeline and into the fold? And how can we look at those apprenticeship models that we've been talking about in our own communities, and maybe what's unique and compelling in some of our own communities that we serve with some of those apprenticeship models. So we're going to dive a little bit further, touch on some of the modern science, if you will, that's currently in the marketplace, out there available to support, and some of those programs that SME is helping accelerate and bring forward out to our partners. And so with that, the format is I'll go ahead and introduce our first speaker, and they'll come up and present and sit down. I'll bring up the second speaker, provide a short bio, so on and so forth. Then we'll all sit down, and as a group, we'll take Q&A from all of you. So thank you again, and let's go ahead and get started. So for our first speaker, it's my pleasure to introduce Christopher Ray, who's the apprenticeship supervisor at Steel. Steel, you may have learned, long-time commitment to workforce development, one of the first speakers at TUX in 2011, and it's been our privilege to see how Steel proudly shares its commitment to workforce development. And so, Chris, we'll go ahead and bring you to the stage, and we'll go, and thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here. I've enjoyed so much about this event and heard so many things. I'll start out by saying I don't represent any one of the technical innovations or programs or platforms that we've heard a lot about. We've heard about so many good ones. You've seen so many opportunities to incorporate a number of various pieces into programs, and what I'm really here to talk about, although it wasn't my charge to wrap up the whole event, but it is to take how and we at Steel are using some of these things and incorporating them. So it's a lot about pulling things together and integrating them. And so we'll talk about that. I would say, all right, I'll improvise along the way. Give a little bit about my background also, because I do bring a unique perspective, a little different than most, in that I built apprenticeship programs as part of a group sponsor. I'm a big fan, and so I've had that opportunity to work for years working with companies as a group sponsor. I've worked in consulting, but now I'm taking all those lessons and implementing them at Steel, and that's a little bit of what I'm here to share. The company, #1 supplier of professional handheld power equipment. I'm not going to do a commercial. You want to see a Steel commercial, turn on the TV. Wonderful products, very high end. We make the best products. We don't make the cheapest, but that's not going to help any of you upskill your workforce. So tune into steel.com or whatever you want. We do have approximately 3,000 employees at our Virginia Beach headquarters. So that makes us slightly different in that we're a big company, but virtually everyone's in one location. So that's nice for me that I don't have to travel a lot in my role as apprenticeship director or whatever my new title is going to be. But same problem. How do we attract, upskill, and retain our workforce? The answer is apprenticeship. I don't love that as an answer or the answer. It's apprenticeship and all the things that go around it. One of the things that I think is worth pointing out about steel, and some of you may be in this boat, I haven't heard a lot of talk about it, but steel, as I arrived, one of the things I noticed is it is an employer of choice. In the Southeast Virginia region, people want to work at Steel. It is a highly desired employer and makes all the lists and all that stuff. But that's a double-edged sword, because what I found is when you're the employer that for years has still been attracting people disproportionately to a lot of other employers, you haven't felt the pinch of the skilled worker shortage. And if you, the presentation this morning, if you don't understand that skilled worker shortage, please educate yourself. It'll really underscore that this is not a today problem. It's a generational problem or beyond. It might be a forever problem. So steel is starting to feel that pinch a little later than most. So it has a good problem and a bad problem wrapped up. But as I arrived, my task was how to rebuild and implement a world-class apprenticeship program in a program that had been faltering. So Steel, as pointed out many years ago, had a well above average apprenticeship program, churning out good people. But as companies are wont to do, they took their eye off the ball and said, hey, we'll hand the apprenticeship program to one of our good workers who knows nothing about apprenticeship. And well, that goes wrong, and I'll explain why. So I want to talk to you about, as I'm rebuilding this, what do I mean when I say that we need an integrated apprenticeship structure? Call it an ecosystem, call it a community. How do we take all of the pieces internally and externally and fit them together and strategically think about them so that we are addressing many of the problems that I've seen come along and that I'll talk about? So in my experiences working both with companies as a sponsor, as a consultant, and now that I'm doing it, I'm seeing a lot of similarities in things. If I only can give you one thing, what to avoid is this list. If you're creating a program, never assign it to an individual or maybe even two people. I've seen this way too many times. I'm maybe the owner of a company or whatever. I love this concept. I was to this great event, heard all about apprenticeship, and we're going to do this. And Charlie, go get them, man. Here's the name of somebody who works at the state or USDOL or maybe an intermediary. They'll help you fill out the forms, and you're going to go get them Tiger. Tiger's going to fail, okay? If Charlie didn't already know a ton about apprenticeship, you're throwing him into the deep end with a weight tied around him or her. So that just go get them, or it's yours and I'm handing it to you, even though you might not know what you're doing. Please never do that, but it happens a lot. Don't view apprenticeship in a vacuum. Actually, these next two bullets have several points that are related. What I mean by that is don't look at your apprenticeship program as one thing, as something that's added on. We do all these other things, we do trainings, and we have this apprenticeship, and it's its own animal. It needs to be woven into everything else. I'll give you a few ideas of what I think that could look like or should look like. One of our speakers, I believe it was earlier today, although maybe yesterday, talked about the avoid thinking of an apprenticeship as a self-sustaining program. And again, this happens a lot. You contact maybe someone from your state or someone from USDOL, and they get you all registered and you got your forms all filled out. Yes, okay, now we can go do something else. Apprenticeship programs don't run themselves. I've used this kind of a stupid analogy, but it's quite accurate. Apprenticeship is like a screwdriver. Hey, look, I got an apprenticeship program. Okay, now go. Well, the screwdriver doesn't do anything by itself. It's a tool. It needs to be used. Apprenticeship is a structure. If you're not using it, if you're not actively managing it, It is going to be the screwdriver that sits on the shelf, doing nothing, but costing you maybe some money. So apprenticeships are not self-sustaining. They're a structure. And, you know, again, from things I've seen, please don't think of it. It's a classic training problem. Oh, we had an incident in the shop. We're a little behind on OSHA. Let's get someone in here. We got 60 people. We need OSHA training. Come on. So your training coordinator or whomever sets up OSHA training. They get a vendor. They come in. They do it, and it's done. Well, if you think of apprenticeship or any long-term training like that, you're going to fail. Okay? It is not something you just organize and set it up. And again, sort of that self-sustaining. It doesn't continue. It will just happen and then falter. Don't go it alone. You know, again, most companies don't have apprenticeship experts working for them. So reach out. There are numerous resources to pull from. You've heard about a lot here today. Use them. Track appropriate metrics. It's interesting. Earlier we had we had one person say, it's really hard to track metrics, and we had another person say, we've been successful tracking it. I'll say they're both right. It is kind of hard, but you can be successful. And I would say track that, because there's a reason you're doing this. And it's probably a lot of reasons. Downtime, turnover, equipment damage, scrap, all sorts of things. If those are problematic, track them and see how an apprenticeship program or your overall training program addresses them. Combine apprenticeship. Now, this is that whole thing. Don't think of apprenticeship alone. If you're already doing a lot of other training, do one of two things. Either incorporate that training into your apprenticeship program, highly recommended, or if it simply doesn't fit, understand how it is attached to your apprenticeship training. Should your apprentices, you know, maybe you have a technical training you do that's fairly high end. Should your later year apprentices be taking that training even if it's not technically part of the apprenticeship? Probably. But if you think of them as separate animals, I can tell you, when I got to Steel, I have an apprenticeship training lab, and right next door is what they call the technical training room. And no apprentices ever want the technical training room, and no employees ever want the apprenticeship lab. So, as you can imagine, in the nature of my speech, I'm looking to knock the one wall down, literally, not just figuratively, and bring all our training together. And that's being done, and that's bully for my boss, who I didn't even have to ask for that when I described the nature of what I wanted. She said, well, these should be put together. Absolutely. And then train your mentors. We've heard a lot of that. I won't talk a lot more other than to repeat it, because it's important. Your mentors need to know what they're doing and how to do it. So what do I mean by this integration concept? Few keys. The first one I think is critically important and rarely done well. HR at all levels. So your apprentices, your journey workers or mentors, and anyone who touches that, their supervisors, their shift managers, everyone should have, as part of their job description, what is their role in making this program a success. I use this example all the time. I think it's been alluded to here, but it bears repeating. Surefire way to make a program run into the proverbial iceberg. I have my apprentice. I have my journey worker. They get it. They're doing their thing. They have a supervisor who's not part of the program. Apprentice says, hey, I got to go do training. Supervisor, we're way too busy for that. You're staying right here. My job's to get widgets out the door. If that person isn't woven into the program, they look out for themselves. They look out for their job description. So I'd highly encourage that all of the people who touch the program, even indirectly, should be part of their job description and their evaluation. You'll see a lot of attitudes change if at the end of the year, if someone comes to me and says, your apprentices are not succeeding well, they aren't making it through their work process list, they're missing training, and I'm going to ding you for it. well, that person will no longer say, hey, automatically we're too busy. Hey, there's those occasions when you are. But people need to solve problems better than to just take the easy route and say, nope, can't do it. Explore your RTI options. There's a lot of RTI options available to you. Explore them. I talked about your existing training. I put online first. That was a shameless suck up to our hosts, but I think an appropriate one because online training is valuable. I'm looking at this from my standpoint. We had one RTI provider. It was the community college. I'm going to continue to use them, but I'm augmenting it with other trainings and stripping out the fact that our apprentices were taking history classes. Don't know what that was helping anybody. So partnering with the workforce boards, we've heard a lot about partnership opportunities. So I'll just repeat, strongly encourage, use these folks, interact with them, see how you can weave them into your program. And then your K-12 schools, we heard a great presentation on pre-apprenticeship. I've helped build pre-apprenticeship, so I get it. It helps your pipeline. Absolutely look into that and integrate it into your overall program. So again, back to me. It's all about me. Lessons I've learned: programs with limited oversight struggle. Management at every level needs to be fully on board, rowing in the same direction. Registration, when pursued, is not the end, it's the beginning. And again, that story, don't forget about your supervisors and managers. And for me, it's Steel. Now, I've only been with Steel for 4 months, not even 4. I'll be launching a pilot cohort of all these things I've really briefly talked about in the fall. I also believe very strongly, think about your program in a continuum. Entry-level employees, going into mid-level positions, going into advanced positions. Don't have that vacuum. Don't have one occupation and say we're done. Where do those folks come from and where are they going to go? Apprenticeship isn't easy. I came about in a time when people were saying, do apprenticeship, it's easy. You know, a lot of states, they were trying to get numbers. It's not easy. When was the last solution to a major problem easy? It wouldn't be a major problem if the solution was simple. But it's easier than the alternative, and the alternative is we're just going to keep treading water and hoping people show up, and those people aren't showing up. Think across your organization, find those partners, and this last one isn't, I don't love the way I worded it, but what I mean is don't just take something that someone comes to you and says, here's your whole program, go, and then just do that. Think about how you need to customize it. You need to customize your work processes. You need to think about what you might add on in terms of training, what alternatives you might have to pieces of it. So think about all those things. Thank you. When I got under 2 minutes,
Okay.
I was like,
Our next speaker is Darren Coates, who is the operations manager at South Carolina Hub Lead Tech. Darren Coates is an experienced operations manager overseeing the South Carolina Hub on-site services for Lead Tech. With 19 years of work history in maintenance and manufacturing, Darren has honed his skills in streamlining operations, optimizing efficiency, and leading successful teams. Known for his expertise in employee development and implementing cost-saving strategies, Darren is committed to driving operational excellence in his role. Outside his work, he spends time with his wife, 6 kids, and baseball. So, Darren, we'll welcome you to the stage. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. All right, so LEDAC, who's heard of it? Not many, right? I know Detroit Diesel, thank you for showing your hand. Ford, we talked yesterday. You'll recognize LEDAC. So LEDAC is not a huge name brand yet. We are getting there. We're growing. So real briefly, I wanted to show you kind of high level what LEDAC is, what LEDAC does. So first off, we engineer, install, maintain, and support all of your operations. It is a completely managed solution. It's not a staffing agency or a temporary staffing agency. We do hire our employees full-time, train them to the customer's expectations, LeadX expectations. We do try to keep those employees on full time, so we do have a extensive retention program, but we also have some isolated models where those employees are hireable by the customer. So our footprint for North America, we've got 2,100 employees, 1,250 of which are dedicated engineering or maintenance related fields. And we're currently servicing 50 plus sites in the United States and Canada. We also service Central, South America, Europe, and Asia. We have 22,000 employees globally with over 300 sites and counting, and collectively we have 60 years of experience. So getting into how we find our people. This is an 8-step process. It's probably familiar with a lot of you. I'm sure all of your talent acquisition processes include a majority of these 8 steps. So I'm not gonna belabor them. The big thing is we've got to know the scope of work. We've got to identify the scope of work. From that scope of work, we're going to develop a job description. As we heard just a little while ago from John, you have to have detailed job descriptions to be able to find the caliber of person you're looking for. The next step, our recruiting team will start identifying potential candidates, and then the recruiting team will do a preliminary interview process. From that interview process, they will move that person on to the on-site manager, where we conduct a very thorough skill-based interview. I will cover that in just a minute. From that skill-based interview, we determine a level, if they're going to be a level 1, 2, 3, or 4 technician. And from that skill-based testing, we'll determine the training plan associated for that person. And then step 8 is how we start to retain. We do 30, 60, 90-day evaluations, and then from there we do annuals. Our target group is the veteran community. So the biggest key to success for this is you have to identify the bases that are close to you, what MOSs and ratings those military installations produce. Who in here is a veteran? Raise your hand. Got a few? All right. Got a follow-on question. How easy is it to transition from the military to the civilian world? Depends on what you're looking for, right? Well, not every MOS or rating translate perfectly to a civilian job, right? So that can make that process very difficult. I myself did find that process somewhat difficult. I'm a veteran as well. I served 8 years in the Navy as a jet engine mechanic. But if you were to ask me, I would have told you I'm an AD, aviation machinist mate. You would have had no clue what I was talking about, right? But if somebody goes in and does some research and they find out that you're a jet engine mechanic, well, that instantly gives you an understanding that, hey, he's mechanical background, maybe some electrical, fluid dynamics, a little bit of everything, right? So what I strive to do, especially for our customers in the Charleston, South Carolina region, is we have 2 major military installations. We have the Navy Nuclear Training Command, and then we also have Charleston Air Force Base, both of which are highly procedural compliant jobs, right? If Navy Nuclear is not following procedures, big things happen, right? Bad things happen. Aviation mechanics, if they don't follow procedures, airplanes come out of the sky, and that's never good, right? So that's why we target those 2 fields, procedural compliance. For the military, procedural compliance is already beaten into us from boot camp, from day one. Whenever you get into these highly skilled MOSs and ratings, you get more of that procedural compliance. So how do we find the veterans? There are, through these bases, they do what's called TAPS class. It's Transition Assistance Program. And so military members that are beginning the transition process, within 6 months, they can sign up for a TAPS class that teaches them how to write a resume, how to write a cover letter, what not to do, what to do, what email address to use, right? You know, some people when they're really young, they choose Hot Wheels 98, right? Well, they teach you that, you know, that's probably not the most appropriate email address for, you know, going into the civilian world. On the end of that, they also do a job fair at the end of it. So they invite companies like LEDAC into their house, and they allow us to interact with the departing military members, take resumes, interview them on the spot, and then hopefully at some point in time move them over to our staff. Our biggest solution for military veterans, though, believe it or not, is through our referrals. So as we started hiring our military veterans, we kept pinging them. Hey, do you know anybody else? Hey, do you know anybody else that's getting ready to get out? Hey, do you know anybody else that's getting ready to get out? And we'd bring them in too, right? So the great thing about once you identify the MOSs and ratings, you know their level of training is you know, above par. So that's also going to teach you that they're trainable. That is hard to determine in an interview, right? How easy can you determine if somebody is trainable in an interview? It's almost impossible unless you're doing a skill-based interview. So hiring military will tell you that right up front, that they are a trainable person. All right, moving into the skill-based interview. So we do 2 multiple tests. So we do a Ramsey testing. That Ramsey test is 60 questions. It covers multi-craft maintenance, so mechanical, electrical, pneumatics, hydraulics. And then we also have a LEDAC proprietary test that we perform. That test is 200 questions. We reserve that for our higher skilled areas where we're trying to get a better gauge on what those employees or potential employees offer and bring to the table. From that Ramsey test, and I'm going to be honest, I've hired people that have scored a 3 on the Ramsey test, and I've not hired people that have scored almost 100. All right, because that comes from the determining factor comes from the hands-on evaluation, right? The paper test will tell you so much about that person. Not everybody's good test takers, so this will at least tell you if there's a base knowledge there. When you go on to the hands-on evaluation, this puts it into a practical, real-world environment for that technician to thrive, right? Technicians thrive under pressure. You apply them a little pressure, you show them some schematics, they can work through it. Also during this time, we talked about the trainability. So I'm also looking to see if they have aptitude. So can I teach, if they don't know the schematic very well, if they don't know the flow very well, can I teach them a little bit, and then in 5 minutes I go back to that schematic? Did they retain what I just told them? And that is a huge determining factor on some of the lower score tests, right? So if you score really low, but I can teach you something in 2 or 3 minutes, I can ask you back in 10 minutes, I'm probably going to hire you. So another part of our success for transitioning the military members is the safety aspect. LEDAC is a people company. We don't manufacture anything. Our success is in our people. And if we're hurting our people, we're not going to be successful. The one thing with the military is they preach safety every day in the military. And so giving the military members that sense of safety and camaraderie, the sense of, hey, I've got your back, that tends to keep them in. So as I said, that skill-based test will tell us what level these technicians are coming in at. This chart here changes as our customers' needs change. So some customers we have, they want level 1 through level 3 technicians. Some customers want level 2 to level 4. And then some customers want level 2 through level 4 with a team lead. And so this chart can change. This is just an example. So 9 times out of 10, anybody that we're bringing out of a college environment, out of a mechatronics program, we're bringing them in as a Tech 2. To give you a perspective on where this is at. If you go to the Navy nuclear fields, I'm typically bringing those in at a 3 or a 4, right? Because their mechanical knowledge, their electrical knowledge is already developed. I don't have to develop that portion. I've just got to change their skill from Navy nuclear reactors to whatever the equipment the customer has. So a minor reskill. From that point, from a Tech 4, as I said, I'm actually a product of this program. I came in to LEDAC as a Tech 2 at the BMW facility in upstate South Carolina. I worked my way up from a Tech 2 to a Tech 3 to a Tech 4. They offered me a technical training position, so I started teaching, I guess, a second level education for all of our employees on mechanical, electrical, pneumatics, hydraulics, robotics, PLCs. And then I went into site management, ran multiple sites, and now I'm operations. So I'm over an area from San Antonio, Texas to Washington, D.C. currently. All of my sites are production equipment maintenance. But so as the fork in the road on the right side of this picture shows, you can either progress from a Tech 4 into LEDAC management, safety, training, operations management, sales, whatever. And if we have an agreement set up with the customer, we can and will allow some transitions over to the customer. And for a lot of our employees, that's the light at the end of the tunnel, right? So in the Charleston, South Carolina area, there is one super big manufacturer. It's a large aerospace manufacturer. That's everybody wants to go to work for that company. And so we are the source in, right? LEDAC, we hire all of the maintenance technicians. We bring them in. It is a working interview for a year and a half, 2 years, however long, for that customer to evaluate that person. And then whenever requisitions come open, that person applies, and they're like, yep, we want this one, this one, this one, and this one. A lot of these companies aren't doing technical-based interviews. So this is how you can do it. All right, so level progression. How do we get them up that scale? So we do the multi-craft test. It's actually the same 200 question test that we developed. What we're looking for in this is as they go from a Tech 2 to a Tech 3, we want to see that score improve. It's the exact same test, exact same questions. We mix up the questions, so there's a test A, test B, test C, but we want to see an overall improvement score on that test. We also do a lab-based troubleshooting, so we've got an electrical stand that does PLC, and motors and controls, and we'll actively use a multimeter and bug the system for them to evaluate this piece of equipment. Addition to that, we also do an HR review. So we're looking at performance and attendance. We're going out and talking to their coworkers on the floor. Hey, how's so-and-so doing? How are they doing? How are they doing? And then we also ask their supervisor, technically, how is this person performing? Are they grasping robotics? Are they grasping the PLC troubleshooting processes? And then from there, we rate them on a score, and then they once they achieve a certain percentage, typically 75%, combination with the test, they will move up to the next level. They can do that process once a year. So it's not a fast process, but it's also not super slow. And then just want to showcase some results. We do like to boast that we have lower than average turnover rate, especially within our military community. So right now, for 2023, we tracked about 28% turnover rate. The industrial average is around 45. And so far for 24, we're tracking 4%. So a lot lower than the industry. We brag about that. We love that. And then another method for our results is contract longevity. So are we getting the long-term contracts with our customer? And that tells us, hey, we're bringing in the caliber of candidate that they need to see to make sure that their processes are running efficiently and effectively. Contract renewal rates also. So is Boeing asking us to come back? Are they shooing us off, or are they asking us to come back? And if they're asking us to come back, then that tells us we're doing a good job. We're still providing that quality candidate. And then who doesn't love awards? So we utilize those awards as part of our success model as well. All right, that's all I got.
All right, thank you, Darren. Thank you very much. Okay. We have two speakers coming to the podium now, and they're from the Cengage Group. First, we have Megan McEnroy, who is head of partnerships. Megan is the head of partnerships at Ready to Hire by Cengage. The SME Ready to Hire program is something we touched on yesterday. They were kind enough to sponsor our baseball game. I hope many of you enjoyed. And today we're going to learn a little bit more about that program and how they're using AI to deliver tailored pipeline solutions. And joining Megan will be Becca O'Toole, who is the partnerships director at the Cengage Group. Just very quickly on Megan, you know, she is worked with over 1,800 college and university partners and workforce agencies. She develops demand-led solutions to meet the specific needs of manufacturing organizations, and this is really key because as you get to see this, the solution and the service that Cengage and SME are bringing out to industry, the tailoring and the localization that their platform can offer is what's very, very, very compelling. With a background in legislation and policy, she has been at the forefront of education and technology and workforce development, establishing impactful public-private partnerships to address labor market challenges in high-demand sectors like healthcare and manufacturing and clean energy. Joining Megan will be her colleague Becca O'Toole, who is the Partnership Development Director at Ready to Hire by Cengage Group. And she specializes delivering, again, innovative talent solutions for entry-level manufacturing roles. And that's key as we talk about really onboarding in many cases that youth maybe that have, this might be their first manufacturing career, right? And so, you know, having that retention, having that stickiness, having that onboarding and tying into that, I think we'll be looking forward to hearing Becca and Megan's comments on that. So why don't I have you both come to the podium and take it away. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
That one is forward.
Thanks, Dan. Well, first, Darren, great presentation, by the way, and thank you for your service. As the spouse of a former paratrooper in the 82nd who has no idea why he is sitting in front of a laptop all day, I can really appreciate your program. I wish he would have had it. So I would encourage all of you to definitely speak to Darren about his program. You won't find a finer group of candidates for sure to bring into your organization. Again, my name is Megan. I'm here from Cengage. We're really excited to be here because we have just recently partnered with SME to talk about a talent acquisition solution that we have first rolled out to healthcare. It's something that we've been developing over the last couple of years here, and really excited to sort of see the results of that come to fruition in healthcare. And now I'm really excited to kind of talk to SME about how we can use those same lessons and the same approach in a space for manufacturing. It's obviously a different industry, but we believe that sort of the model that we've put together here can work in a whole bunch of different ways, but manufacturing in particular. And that's the reason for my partner in crime up here, Becca, is joining me here today. Becca comes to us from Ball Corporation. She has a really, really great background developing apprenticeship programs for Ball Corporation and really kind of brings to Cengage a great perspective in manufacturing that I, for one, have had in healthcare, so forgive me in advance for any of the analogies that I make to healthcare. I've been in that space for a while, and sitting in this room today, I can tell you that they have a bigger challenge than you guys do right now, so you're in a pretty good position at the moment. So to start with, just as Cengage generally, we're kind of throwing a lot of brands around here. Ready to Hire is a new motion for Cengage. We have traditionally been in the education space providing talent solutions and education for colleges and workforce development across the country. But for the most part, we've done that in a very supply-side way. And that's, I think, the innovative element that we're kind of bringing to the table today, which is that everybody has really focused on how to get a student into a program and through a program and to pay for a program and to finally find you guys and hopefully find a job and get to the rest of their lives. And that's a lot to put on a student. And that's something that we've all at Cengage have been doing for a number of years. But instead, we really took a look at this a couple of years ago and said, how can we do this differently? How can we do a more demand-driven solution that's going to be, better aligned? I think that's a word we've been hearing a little bit from a bunch of different speakers today. How do we align all of this a little bit better in terms of geography, in terms of credentials, in terms of skills, all those different things? So Cengage, for the most part, we work across the country, but we tap a whole bunch of different areas. We work in K-12 because we supply textbooks. We're a global education supplier of textbooks and education and curriculum, and we do that to K-12, we do that to colleges on the academic side, And we also do that to colleges on the workforce development side. So that non-credit division of the college that probably no one has heard of, or community colleges or universities, we work a great deal with those particular providers to work on short-term certification-based programs specifically. So anybody that can get through a program in 3 to 6 months, we're not talking about 2-year programs, we're not even talking about 4-year programs, we're talking about very short-term programs to really speed to paycheck as best as possible. So the reason that's important is that we have a very big footprint, and we do this all across the country with a whole bunch of major brands, major healthcare providers, and we've been doing this for a number of years. We have a very great engine that really provides the curriculum, provides the programming for all of these colleges, but also finds them students. And I think that's the biggest thing that we really want to kind of bring to everybody's attention today, is that while we touch about 250,000 students annually, we have about 4 million that have raised their hand and said, I want to be in healthcare, or I want to be in manufacturing, and they have no way in. They want to take a program, they know there's a job there, but they don't know what to do to get there, and they don't have a way to pay for it. And they don't necessarily know if that employer is hiring in their area. So what we do is line all of that up. You can see there's a whole bunch of brands here at the bottom. For our ready to hire solutions specifically, we started with 2 major healthcare systems, Northwell Health and Novant Health, with whom we piloted our programs initially. And since then, just over 2 years, we have grown to 12 partners. We're serving over 300 candidates in our pipeline just now. So again, this is a new program, but really all we're doing is reverse engineering the things that Cengage has done for many, many years. We are really good at finding students who want jobs and who want to learn how to do the things they need to do to get jobs. And I think that's a really big difference about the market and the audience that we serve. We're not just serving people who are looking for jobs, we are looking and we're finding learners. And it makes a really big difference in terms of the commitment and the initial intention. I think this is moving. Okay. So how do we do that? The first thing that we want to do is understand that we're really looking for frontline talent as much as possible. You guys obviously have your major technician-based, highly technical, engineering-based programs. That's not us. That's for our school partners. Let them keep doing that. Where we want to focus is really on that frontline talent, the high turnover, typically high demand programs, anything that we can do to sort of expand that talent pool as best as possible. So we want to tap all those students that can't take a program, the students that we have to turn away, and instead tell them that we do have a program for them. So the way that we do that is we start with the employer. We start with you to understand who you're trying to hire, what they need to be able to do, where that is, where they need to be able to be situated in order to drive to you or take the bus to you or whatever needs to happen. We then over-recruit for that number of candidates. We start those candidates through a whole bunch of interview processes and things like that to make sure that we're meeting your particular job requirements. And then we put them through a training program. That train to hire program is designed, actually intentionally, to be attrition-based. So we oversubscribe the program, and then we actually weed out all the candidates that aren't showing the kind of commitment, the kind of tenacity that we want, the candidates that aren't meeting the grade requirements or completion requirements that we need. And then only those candidates who are successful, we refer to you. And we do that all on our dime. So all of that we're doing, we're really trying to remove as much risk as possible from our employer partners so that we can find you the best talent, and we can basically, like I said, sort of flip the economic model about how we find and place students into these jobs. So we provide the didactic training. We do all of that through online training, through simulators, through a bunch of different ways that we do all the different training that we need to do to qualify them for the positions that you have open. Then we will also provide on-site training after they're hired to really smooth out that onboarding process and shorten that time, but also make sure the candidates feel as supported as possible through that process, through a structured onboarding process more than anything. I apologize, I think at the baseball game I was yelling a little bit. And then also, we provide retention support. So after you hire them, we're going to do that on-site training, and then we support retention up to 3 months after the hire date. If anybody doesn't make it through that retention period, we replace them at no charge off the bench we're creating on the front end. So this is a whole way to build a new talent pipeline that can continue to come in at your standards and your requirements, that is ready to train and learn more from you. So some of our results so far, just with healthcare, so far 91% of the candidates that we refer are hired. That means that we're finding the right candidates, we're finding quality candidates, and we're training them to the standards that our partners have required. We can do the same thing with manufacturing, and we're starting that already. We are also increasing the pool of candidates 200%. I'd go back to, again, the difference between the candidates that we have versus the candidates you might be getting already for your job post. These aren't people who have had a whole bunch of jobs before, perhaps. These aren't the people necessarily who are going to bolt, or if they are, we're going to make sure we're weeding those candidates out. So what you're finding instead from us is a pool of candidates who are, again, more interested in learning incidental to the job that they want to get. And that's just a far different intention to start with, and really reveals a lot more about those candidates that are going to be a lot stickier for you on the back end. We are also speeding up time to hire through our onboarding process, again, that's really structured and supported. And we're cutting those costs as best as possible, because when you're working with us, you know what you're getting from all the candidates that we're sending over. You have a more uniform, consistent talent pool that you're choosing from. And then finally, so far, with the trainees that have made it through the 3 months, 94% of them are still retained by our clients. A little bit more in depth on the process here. We kind of went through this a little bit, but just so you guys understand, we can kind of go as deep or as shallow as you want, right? We can train them to be that certified manufacturing associate, and then you can take them the rest of the way for a more skilled position when you feel ready to invest in them. Or we can go really deep on even more technical training with our partners at SME on site. And Becca is going to give you some more.
I'm going to let you take a breath now.
I'm sorry, I like baseball game. I was really excited.
Yeah. No, it's great. And I think one of the reasons I was so excited to join the Cengage team was I spent over a decade in talent acquisition in really, some high volume areas. And I was really excited to see that this is an opportunity for employers to, as someone said it earlier, invest in your future talent pipelines, break down those barriers that are keeping people out, right? And so as a talent acquisition leader, so many of the decisions we make are based on how do we continue to make the most impactful workforce that is diverse and that is moving our businesses forward. And so this felt like a really interesting way to scale that impact on a much broader scale. So wanted to just showcase, I don't think I need to share this statistic with anybody. We heard this a whole bunch this week. But here are some of the roles that we're really excited about, and we've kind of been having early conversations with some of our manufacturing partners, with some of our local government partners that are earning grants for developing workforce around EV fundamentals, things like that. So we're having a lot of fun really kind of digging into some of these new initiatives here. I wanted to pull the curtain back a little bit on what we're doing and just share some of the pieces that we have found are really creating that stickiness with these candidates before we're sending them over to our employer partners. So I think we've all talked a lot this week about the importance of soft skills, or power skills as I like to call them. Go girls. So that is where we spend a ton of time at the beginning, really making sure that they're understanding not only, if this is their first job or if this is their first time entering a manufacturing work environment, what could that look like? What's expected of them? What are some of those norms, right? Changing your email address from Hot Wheels 24, right? Some of those different pieces that by the time they reach kind of your team and your interview process, they're really set up for success, and some of those kind of baseline skills are really already invested. We lose a ton of people at this process.
We want to.
And we want to, right? We want to make sure that we're weeding those people out through a lot of these different hoops and stages by the time they get to you. And then, of course, manufacturing foundations, right? And I have some of these in red because this is what you want. This is what you're designing for the roles that you're hiring for. Nothing more, nothing less. So we can provide the curriculum with SME and Tooling U on kind of what we have known to be true as a baseline expectation stepping into some of these roles. But this is highly customizable based on what you need your team members to have coming in the door. And then this goes into a little bit more depth on some of the positions that we're working with Tooling U-SME and our teams to kind of further develop pipelines for. Okay, this part I geek out about a little bit. I'm not used to having a mic on my chest. This is our online experience. And so this is a web-based application that we're getting a lot of great feedback on. This is what the candidates will go through so they can kind of understand the holistic pipeline that they're expected to learn, from the soft skills to the manufacturing and the technical skills, all the way through the on-the-job training that we're doing in partnership with your teams locally. This is also a really helpful tool for data. We love data, right? So this has been really powerful, especially for our partners that are working with grant funding and trying to really be able to prove out their investment for future grant funding initiatives. This is also really helpful in some of the plants that I supported previously. We would have 24 different plants with 24 different processes, and everyone was kind of coming in at different levels. This really helps standardize the curriculum, not only for your candidates, but for your supervisors and your, we call them preceptors in healthcare, but for your people that are actually delivering the on-the-ground content. It helps create a level of standardization and then that macro level data with the ability to customize it at a site level. So we all know, different plants may have different needs, different designs. You can incorporate that level of customization and then have that data reporting tool to really help understand where your trainees are, where your workforce is, and where they might need to continue to develop. And this is really, again, as a TA nerd, I love talking about the candidate experience. We've had some really meaningful outcomes with our healthcare candidates. We are activating learners who are not applying to your jobs today because they don't meet the baseline qualifications, and there is a barrier there. And so we are just simply connecting the dots between this population that is raising their hands saying, I want to improve my situation, I'm underutilized, I want to change industries. And there are certain barriers there, so we're really excited about just connecting the dots between those people that are hungry to change their circumstances and the opportunity that really could change their life. And the last piece I want to say is that we do this through your brand. So in partnership with local universities, community colleges, whatever is really powerful and present in your geographic location, we work in partnership with those universities as well. That helps give a little bit of the credibility, I would say, to the educational programming. And then we leverage your branding to go out into the marketplace and through our 4 million learners in our online community to advertise these positions. So I know a lot of manufacturing organizations don't have huge budgets around employer branding or recruitment marketing, so we actually take that on. We harness your brand, we'll grab your social media accounts if you have those, and then we are really putting some engines behind amplifying your brand in this way with this employer-provided funding, training before they're actually reaching your organization. So you're bringing in lots of great candidates, but you're also reaching a whole new audience that understands, okay, Steel is actually really investing in this community. They're willing to put dollars behind training people before they even join the organization. And that's it. All right. So if you want to get in touch with us, our information's here. Thanks so much for sticking around towards the end of the day with us, guys. Thank you.
Don't worry, everyone. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, filling out and concluding our panel, we have Matt Ladke, who is the Chief Administration Officer for Grady. And Matt leads the Human Resources, Communications, and Environmental, Social, and Governmental ESG activities. Matt has over 20 years experience leading HR and manufacturing and supply chain industries. Prior to joining Grady, Matt was Senior Vice President of Human Resources for the less than truckload business at XPO Logistics, and before that was Stanley Black & Decker. Matt, if you could please come to the podium. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, last speaker of the day. The only thing worse than being between a group and lunch is being between a group and the bar. So we'll get this done. Every time I hear my bio read, it seems like a lot of words to say that I'm a plant HR guy. But that's what I am. I'm a plant HR guy. A little bit about myself. I'm a true Michigander. Grew up in Grand Ledge, Michigan. I went to the national championship football winning University of Michigan for my undergraduate. I went to the other school in Michigan for my graduate degree. All joking aside, great HR program. And I'm married to a high school Spanish teacher, and I have 2 teenage boys. That's us actually out at the Rose Bowl this year, watching Michigan beat Alabama. So again, a little bit about my career. I started at GE right out of grad school, did a 2-year rotational development program. I have started postgraduate rotational development programs at every company I've been at since. That could be a whole different presentation for a different day. That's not what I'm here to talk about, but I am a huge advocate of those. Then I moved around a lot. I went to trucking and logistics for 4 years, realized it was the only job harder than manufacturing, and now I am back in manufacturing with Grady. So hopefully this will work. There we go. All right, so that was a little sizzle video that we put together earlier this year to introduce our focus on smart manufacturing, IoT. We are leading in the U.S. as it relates to the implementation of IoT in the foundry industries. Again, I've had a lot of great conversations here this week about that. Again, in talking to Dr. Gerald Wyatt yesterday when he mentioned that they were taking students and their parents on tours of manufacturing facilities to teach them that they're not dirty and smoky and hot anymore. I'm like, well, you're clearly not taking them to a foundry, because a foundry is dirty and it's hot and it's smoky. But that's what a lot of people think about of a foundry, and we're not trying to hide what we are, but people don't realize that we're also doing 3D printing, that we're doing smart manufacturing, IoT, robotics. So we've actually embarked on a very deliberate rebranding campaign to reset the image about what our company is and what we have to offer to today's generation of employees. But yeah, you're going to be in an environment where we're still pouring molten iron, and quite frankly, I find that very cool. Hopefully, a lot of other people do too. But there's also a lot of opportunities to interact with cutting-edge technology. So that's where that video plays into that. What you see here are the industries we serve, the customers. A lot of you in this room are actually our customers. American Axle, DT&A, Volvo Truck, so Caterpillar. So thank you, and please order more if you would. We have 10 facilities around the U.S., 9 of them are foundries. 1 of them is a dedicated machining center. And then we have our headquarters in Southfield, Michigan, actually right across the street from the SME headquarters. We've been in business for 104 years. Our first foundry was started in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin by William J. Grady. So this is our strategic framework. This slide is in every presentation that we do internally. You will find this on our website. We call this our North Star. Who are we, where are we going, and how are we going to get there? Has the same thing that everybody has, mission, values, vision, but then we have our strategic imperatives. We've talked a lot about things in this room over the last 2 days that fall into the operational transformation transperative, the commercial excellence, the systems and innovation, and then ultimately, I'm responsible for the workforce development strategic imperative. So, these are how we're going to plan to achieve our vision, our mission, and our values. So we have a problem. What you see here in this bar chart is our turnover in our organization. As you can see, we lose the lion's share of the people that we lose in the first 6 months of employment. Typically, that's in the first 90 days. And then, another good chunk between 6 months and 1 year, and then, in that 1 to 3 years. If we can get them to stay for 6 months, typically we can keep them. And so, we're really, really focused on activities to drive engagement, onboarding, and forming that connection and that, as quickly as possible with the organization for our new hires. So I'm beating the drum with my field HR team. Spend more time on engagement, spend more time with your new hires, spend more time on onboarding. And they said, that's great. But what do you want me to spend less time on? Because I'm pretty busy as it is. I'm working 50 plus hours a week. So what you see there on the right, that's our other problem. We did a time study on where our HRMs and our HR generalists and our plants are spending their time. And right now, we're spending too much time on what I'll call less valued activities. Transactional activities, answering the same payroll question 16 times every week when employees look at their pay stub, running turnover reports for your general manager so they can report out on their weekly ops call, sending the same information to every class of new hires that you have starting in orientation every single week, because every week you have a new class of orientation because your turnover is so high. So in order to free them up to do more value-added work, training, development, engagement, all of the things that we've talked about here in the last 2 days, finding those partnerships in their community with trade schools, developing apprenticeship programs. There has to be some way to get them to do less of the non-value or less value-added activities. So we started thinking about it. We said, well, if we're focused on implementing AI and smart manufacturing to improve our operations, why can't we do the same thing to improve the efficiencies in our support functions, human resources, finance, IT? We can do the same thing there. So we've started down that path, and I'll get into a specific tool that we've launched here in a second. But these are opportunities where AI can solve HR problems, can help HR become more efficient. And then what you see on the right is really what we've developed as our strategy for implementing technology within the HR function at Grady. And I'm going to focus on two things here, specifically under the goals. One of the big goals I keep touting is I want to make it easier to work for Grady. So what does that mean? If anybody here has read the book Atomic Habits, the book focuses on the way to develop a new habit, a good habit, or break a current habit is friction. So think about snacks. You want to snack less. If the snacks are in the house and all you have to do is get out of the chair and go to the cupboard, get the bag of chips, that's low friction. You're likely not going to stop snacking. If the snacks are at the gas station and in order to get them, you have to get up, get dressed, get your car keys, drive to the gas station, all that, that's too much friction. It's not worth it. You're just not going to eat the snacks. Same concept, I think, applies to working in manufacturing. We need to make it easy to develop the habit being continuing to come to work for us. The bad habit we want them to break is quitting because it's too hard to come to work for us. So that's what I mean when I say we want to make it easier to work for Grady. The other one is do more with the same. That's how I've communicated this to my HR team to try to convince them, and that I'm not trying to eliminate their jobs through AI. I've said, listen, I don't want to have less HR people in Grady, but I'm also not naive enough to think that my CEO is going to give me a budget for a lot more HR people in Grady as well. So we have to figure out how to do more with the same number of resources we have today, and that's where technology and AI come in. So here's one specific piece of technology that we're working. It's through a company called Mainstay. SME actually brought this to us last year and said, hey, there's this company we're looking to partner with. They've got an AI chatbot for employee engagement. Would you like to pilot this? And by the way, we'll pay for the pilot. I'm like, well, you said the magic words right there. I said, absolutely, sign us up. So we went through the pilot. We had great success. We've now invested with Mainstay. We're a subscriber of this tool, and we're rolling it out to all of our facilities this year. We branded it as Mo, because one of the keys to technology adoption is to humanize it and make it seem less like a robot, more like a person. So instead of asking Mainstay, the AI chatbot, you're asking Mo questions that hopefully Mo can answer for you automatically. We're also using Mo to push out communications and surveys so that we can gain data from our new hires regarding how well we're doing on onboarding and engagement, especially in that first 30, 60, 90 days. So, this is just where we're sitting with a question that we sent out to the first sites that we launched this at, which are Bisco, North Carolina, Bruton, Alabama, and St. Cloud, Minnesota. And these are the results we got regarding, how well do they understand their role in the job requirements after 30 days. And if they answer not good, we know who they are, and we can immediately send a human to go follow up with them to say, hey, what don't you understand? What's not clear? How can we help give you some remedial refresher training so that you are comfortable and it makes it easier to continue to work for Grady? So these are some of the initial stats. These are getting better every day. This was when we only had it rolled out at 3 sites. Again, we contacted over 1,000 employees, 48% engagement rate. Only 3% of our employees are opting out because we are texting their personal cell phone. So you have to give them the option to opt out. But only 3% of employees are choosing to opt out. We've had a few invalid phone numbers. But the two I'm really, really happy here with is Mo, or the chatbot, is currently answering 62% of the questions asked of it with no human interaction. So it knows the answers to these questions, and it's answering them automatically. That's already saved 2,000 minutes of HR's time. So that's 2,000 minutes of somebody's time or people's time that can be reallocated to other more value-added activities from that standpoint. So again, really, really encouraging. The employees are really loving it. We've identified some additional opportunities. I was telling somebody, we want to improve the participation rate in our all-employee engagement survey. And so we said, okay, we're going to use employees' their ID number as their identifier because they didn't like it when we asked them to provide a piece of personal information. And I said, well, but nobody knows their employee ID number. So, from that standpoint, so they're all going to come into HR, and HR is going to spend weeks telling all these employees their employee ID number. And we said, well, no, we're not. Well, let's use Mo. So we're going to send the survey link out through Mo, and then Mo is going to scrape our HRAS system and automatically send everybody their employee ID number right after it sends them the survey link, so they can go in and take the survey. And if they forget their employee ID number, they can ask Mo, and Mo can tell that to them with nobody in HR having to get involved in that process. So we think that's going to really help increase our engagement participation with our survey this year. So next steps. Again, by the end of this month, we'll have rolled this out to all 10 of our manufacturing facilities and our corporate headquarters. We continue to see increases in the automatic response rates from that. We're going to continue to use this to, proactively for new employees. John earlier talked about, that he has the supervisor call the employee, on the night before they're going to start. We're using Mo in the same way. So we are having Mo send text messages to new employees 2 days before they start. Hi, you're scheduled to start this day at this time. Do you still plan to show up at this day and this time? If they say yes, great. If they say no, it goes to HR. Somebody calls them, hey, what's wrong? What's going on? Do we need to adjust your start date? Yes. Okay, great. Here's the address to the plant. Here's a picture of the parking lot. You should park here. Here's how you get into the lobby. Here's who's going to meet you. Here's the name of your supervisor. Here's a picture of them. Here's a little bit about the plant where you're going to work. When we opened, what we do. Again, accelerating that feeling of community with Grady and decreasing the anxiety of starting work. I guarantee there are some people out there that were scheduled to start work with Grady that realized the night before they didn't know where the plant was, so they just decided it would be easier to not start working with Grady, and then they'll go down the street, they'll talk to the other employer down in town that's hiring, and they'll get a job there because they're not exactly sure where the Grady plant is, and the other guy's paying about the same amount anyways. One lesson learned is, we as HR have to be a little bit better at our discipline for this tool to work to its highest potential. An example being, we weren't getting those pre-hire communications out initially to a very high percentage of our prospective new hires. I'm like, well, why not? Well, because what we found out was our HRGs weren't hiring them in our HRIS system 2 days beforehand like they were supposed to. Well, if their information isn't in the HRIS system, then Mainstay can't scrape the system, find out, pull their information and start sending them those pre-programmed new hire texts. So we had to get back with our HRGs and say, hey, you really got to get people hired in the system 48 hours before their scheduled start date so this tool can work as anticipated. So, there's some learning that has to go on through that. So where are we going here? Again, this is the beginning of our journey of utilizing technology and AI to make the HR function at Grady more effective. We're learning. We don't know a lot about this right now. I learned a lot already this week. But here are some courses, some seminars, and some books that I am personally reading that I have challenged my HR leadership team to participate in. And then again, we will continue to roll out Mainstay this year. We're going to evaluate additional tools in the space of recruiting, payroll management, benefits management, with a goal of launching at least another 3 AI tools in 2025 to help further improve the efficiency of our HR function. So that's what I've got.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's have some quick Q&A. I know we're a couple of minutes over time, but we've heard here about engagement, something that was really echoed from even the very earliest comments with their opening keynote, and the importance as it looks towards certainly onboarding the next generation. We've heard about delivering a trained workforce with velocity and efficacy to create that stickiness, so when they arrive, and the ready-to-hire tool that SME and Cengage can provide. We've heard about working with transitioning veterans and what an important element that can be, certainly down in your region in South Carolina, and some of the lessons learned. We heard about Apprenticeship 2.0 and some of the lessons learned and opportunities to knock down some of those walls and build that learning culture into the commitment across the organization. So maybe on that, would anybody have any questions for any of our panelists? So I might have a question.
I
or
think
do we
he
have one
does,
up front?
yeah, right here.
Yep, here we go. And forgive us, we're staring at quite a few stars in the solar system here. So.
Okay, for the ladies here, I'd like to ask a question. I noticed that you had a turnaround to get a new employee within 90 days. Did you find in today's market that it's difficult to do that today, to really screen the employees and bring someone on staff that has the capabilities to do the job for the employer, that whoever it is that you bring into medical or production manufacturing?
What we can say right now is that our experience in healthcare so far, one of the things that we were very concerned about when we first rolled out this model would be our ability to find candidates, period. It was something that we weren't sure if we could do initially, and then certainly for the replacement model that we created on the back end, where we are replacing anybody that doesn't meet that retention period. It turns out that part was actually the easier part. And just to give you a sense of it, I think that was important to sort of bring up the number of candidates that we have and that we touch all the time. For one of our first projects with Northwell Health in Long Island, we were trying to fill 30 pharmacy technician positions, and we had 1,100 candidates in 3 days. And that's a testament to our marketing capability, but a marketing capability before we even got started there. That was just our CRM. We have a ton of candidates who want your jobs. They just don't know that you exist, and they don't know what that job is, and they don't know how to qualify to get your job. So if we can do the work that we're really good at, which is putting your information in front of those candidates and putting those opportunities in front of students, then I think we have a really great opportunity to tap an audience that, like we said earlier, you just may not be seeing before. But we can certainly get them through that training in 2 months to replace them very easily. But the point is that we have a constant pipeline that we're continuing to develop once we work with our clients. It's not just a one-time thing. We have a pipeline that we're developing, and we continue to supply even after we fill the last job.
And just to add to that, we have a really great team of student support. And so you saw the application that we have. We have different internal triggers. If a student is not completing their didactic training at certain intervals or pacing that we've kind of set out with the employer, we have someone that actually picks up a phone and reaches out and talks them through, where they're at mentally, what are some of the challenges. All of that learning happens asynchronously, and then they have these online sessions, with our collaborators and things like that. So what I think is unique is you're going to be these candidates are going to be reaching you at different times. You're not waiting for one full cohort necessarily to graduate. So this is, I think, a nice supplement to some of your more traditional pipelining efforts as well. Thanks.
Hi, my question's for Matt. We are going through something very similar, and I was just wondering if you experienced any resistance to the change or the technology from team members and how you influenced that change. Our team members specifically, they like to go to that HR contact that they have, and so we're trying to influence that change. Just wondering if you had any solutions for that.
I think the resistance has been lower than I expected. As I mentioned, our opt-out rate has only been 3%. But I also believe that, to your point, there is still a population that is just going straight to the HRG because that's what they're accustomed to. We're early in the stages of adoption. We're hoping that the more that they see the benefit of getting an answer, a question answered as quickly as possible, as it does, instantaneously, if Mo has access to the data necessary to answer the question, that'll continue to increase more and more. So.
My question is to Mr. Ray. Can you give us a training resource that you have been successful with for training your mentors?
No.
Good.
And no, and yeah, no, and yes. So no, I have not found a packaged curriculum for mentor training. And so what I'm doing is using my knowledge of apprenticeship and what people need to understand to be a part of an apprenticeship program, and then working with our internal curriculum development people they already have a train the trainer. So we're going to take a train the trainer program and just skew it toward mentor training and deliver that. I know that there are people who do train the trainer types of things. My caveat there would be you're not really training trainers. You're training. I've heard the word peer trainer or mentor. It's just slightly different, but I have not seen something that I packaged or bought into entirely. I've seen programs that get close.
Okay, thank you.
We have one up front here, Megan.
Just one other question. This question for Matt. When you put the system in for the AI, as far as Mo, is Mo a system that's available on the internet or access to something you developed? And one of the things I noticed, when you reduce the time by 2,000 minutes, that's huge. I definitely applaud you for that. These are the things that I'm seeing to bring time down to do more value-added capabilities. But how long did it take you to populate Mo with the information that was needed to give the proper response to an employee?
And that's still very much happening. So Mo is from a company called Mainstay. So we didn't develop the tool ourselves. Mainstay is the provider of the AI chatbot tool. We've just internally branded it Mo. So if you're interested in something like this, I'm sure somebody at SME can put you in contact with Mainstay. They are great launch partners. We meet with them regularly to talk about how we can further utilize the tool. It takes a while, the initial scripts, especially for the things that we want to proactively push out. We've had to spend some time writing the scripts. Hi, welcome to Grady at Bisco, North Carolina on your first day. But they are continuing to further develop their AI technology as well. One of the things that they're launching here soon is an AI scraping technology. So what that means is we can give the tool access to our employee handbook. We can give the tool access to our benefits policies, and it will search on its own for the answers to some of the questions. So if an employee says, my uncle just passed away, how many days of bereavement am I eligible for? Mo will go in and automatically search, and if it can find the information in our bereavement policy, it will then send that information directly to the employee. If not, it'll elevate it to an HR person who will then follow up with that employee. So as the technology learns and becomes smarter, the percentage of questions that it can answer automatically with no human intervention will continue to increase. So.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So this question's actually for Darren. You talked about the multifaceted assessment that's done at LEDEC. How do you get away with that, like from an interviewing process? That's not your only source of assessment when you're actually interviewing a candidate, correct? Or do you have like multiple levels that you're looking at to kind of make sure that the candidate is well-rounded?
So for maintenance technicians, that is our only format that we use. I think you're asking like how do we determine level based on that. So we look at their the test scores, the written test score, plus how they performed within the hands-on evaluation, and then we also look at their resume for years of experience, and that helps us kind of determine where they're at on that 1, 2, 3, or 4 scale.
Good. For our panel, any other feedback or questions? If not, maybe we could provide a nice round of applause for a lot of information, such great insights. Thank you very, very much.